So guys, if you don't know me, I'm Nancy Mura, and I am the founder of another group called Pizza-Palooza, which just skyrocketed with over 2,000 members, and we all help each other. And it's been absolutely the most incredible thing to be a part of. And so I do that with Diane Crecelius, and she's the pediatric version. And now we have Paul. We've had Paul for a really long time. Paul Silovsky here. He's like a master CEO, just all around great guy, awesome helper, loves to help. He's been in his profession for a really long time, decades. And Paul is, we're going to grow this group like we grew the pediatric one. And oh, good, Sherry, we're so happy to have you. And we're going to grow this group, and we're going to give this PT private practice people all the help they can have. All right. So I hope you can have a lot of help, because that's what we had, and we're growing. And so if you're in the Facebook group, if you're in the private practice network, I need you guys to we're copying everything that the PEDS group does. Why? Because it's absolutely successful. And when I mean successful, I don't mean like monetarily, like for me or for SSI, the sponsors. I mean, it's successful in that we provide a ton of help. Why? Because people pose questions and then people answer the questions. So if you go on the private practice network, please, and you see questions just hanging out there. Hey, what code do you guys use for blah? Hey, what do you do with a new hire that is blah? Please try to answer. If we get that momentum, you cannot imagine what's going on over in the PEDS world. You cannot. It's gigantic. So I wanted to say that. Now this time, now Paul says it's going to be mind-bending about time, that it's something about our idea of time. I'm so excited because, guys, I get a lot of ish done. Okay. There's no denying I'm like a little bit of a whirlwind. I get a lot done, but I get a lot done in almost like in a disorganized way. Like I was telling Paul, first of all, I am like time's executioner. I'm one of those people, like I can kill time like ain't nobody's business. You tell me I have a 3-hour layover in Miami airport, and I'm like, oh, I'll get on Facebook. In 3 hours, I'm like missing my plane. I have literally done that, missed my plane because I got so caught up like killing time. So I'm time's executioner, but I'm not the greatest thing at that. And I get away with it because I get so, what?
That might be part of the problem.
That might be part of the problem. And then the other thing I was telling Paul is that it's like I treat my brain like it's some kind of crazy Velcro, and then whatever granola sticks to it in a windstorm is kind of what sticks. I do a thing, we call it a battle plan. It's sort of a to-do list, but that battle plan kind of gives it that extra like we're going to take on the day. I do that, but I got to tell you, I'm really excited about this. So without further ado, I want to introduce Paul again. Paul is the CEO. He's a PT CEO of Rebound Physical Therapy. And what's amazing about Paul's practice is, and when I talk to people that want to get out of their practices because they're just like ready to throw in the towel from overwhelm, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, here's the deal. Paul is what we call phase 2. Phase 1 is when you're growing your practice and it's like it's getting up on its sea legs and it's getting all nice and strong. Phase 2 is when that puppy can run itself like a smooth machine. So on the ped side, we have Diane that does 3,000 visits a week. She goes away for like a month. The whole practice runs itself, like without a hitch. And she's like, I'm at the beach. This is my office. Paul, phase 2 to his practice, he runs an entire 2-location practice, thousands of visits a month, and he does it all from the practices in Topeka, and he does it in Nashville, and where his wife decided, oh no, we're going to be with them grandbabies and raise them up and be a part of their lives. So that's their game. And so he just runs it, goes into town, flies over, runs the show, goes back. Right, Paul? Is that pretty much how you do it?
Yeah, one week a month at this point. And Roxanne, matter of fact, it's so funny you mentioned this because Rox, this weekend we were talking, we had actually had a day together on Sunday because some stuff got canceled that I was going to do. And she's like, think you can work it out where you just go like every other month or something? So it's kind of funny. Like, okay, new challenge, new game. But yeah, right now it's 1 week a month here. So I fly in on Monday, fly out on Friday night, and Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're excited to hear what you have to say about time, because I'm sure these CEOs that are on here and or their staff, they are like, bring it, because this is a common issue for a lot of people. And there's just so much to do and get done. So I'm going to try to let some extra people in. So if I look down, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm just trying to get some more people in here.
Yeah,
that
no
are
problem. Got a nice group here. This is good.
got a nice group.
Yeah. You ready for me to start?
Yes, sir. Bring
Okay,
it.
great.
Take it away.
Cool. Okay. So here's what I'll do. This is even a better workshop or seminar to do live, because then I can interact with you guys. Normally this is a 90-minute seminar, but since it's a time creation workshop, I'll do it in an hour. I'll do it under an hour just because the pressure's on. So a practical demonstration, right, of what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to be able to see you guys. So if I'll get through the theory on this the best that I can. And I really hope last time I had enough time at the end to answer some questions, and we can do some two-way communication back and forth as needed. If not, I'll definitely make myself available for anybody on any subject that I cover, because it really is my purpose to help owners and executives expand their universe, if you will. Whatever it is that's important to you is important to me, because I think it's super important that private practice not just survives, but thrives in the current environment. And that's really true. What Nancy said is like, all my buttons on help are pretty flat. When these guys ask me to help, I help. And because they've helped me so much. And that's why that's not the only reason I do it, but I love our professions, the allied health professions. And I love what you guys do and represent. I know the heart of who we are. So that's what I'm backing up. So there's a little statement of purpose for you, Nancy. That wasn't in the script, but I just threw it out anyway. So
love it. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to pull up some slides here. I'm not going to be able to see you or what you're writing. I'm going to let Nancy keep track. If you have questions, write them in the chat. If you have feedback, that's great. If you don't get something, let Nancy know and I'll stop. Because if there's a word or a concept that you don't understand and I need to go over it, then have Nancy stop me. But let her know, because I'm happy to stop and do that. But I definitely have the intention at the end to communicate with you. I literally put this one together I'm serious about it. It's a 90-minute seminar that I do live. So I had to condense some things. So I put this together for you guys. And I do have an example at the end of what I'm talking about, of what one of the major keys is to time creation. So here we go.
I'm gonna interrupt. I'm so good at that. Ask the fiance how good I am at that. Okay, so here's the thing with that 90-minute thing. See, hold on to your hats, people, because what we do over on the Pizza-Palooza sides is called Pizza-Palooza Community, which is what we really truly have, and conferences, which is what we produce. And people come to them, and yes, it's a one size fits all, and sometimes it's not as tailor-made for your practice as it could be. We got to fix for that too. But we want to do this. We want to do this for the PT private practice owners. We want to put on a conference. I started small with 30 owners in one room that we could barely fit in. And now we had 400 at our last event in the middle of a pandemic. So if you want to see conferences and you want to have Paul deliver this 90 minutes, you need to be like amalgamated to this group, and you need to work with me and talk with me and chat with me, because that's my favorite thing. Okay, no more interrupting. Go on, Paul. Go on.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and roll into some slides more to guide my conversation, because otherwise I'll definitely ramble on, because I don't mind talking. So here we go from the beginning. Made my own little name for this thing. Oops, what happened to my title? So I'm calling it time creation, not time management. You'll see a lot of that out in the marketplace, time management. I don't, that's too difficult for me. I'd rather create time. And to create it to maximize and or leverage, in your guys' case, your results. Now, you can decide what you want to leverage it towards. If it's profits, if it's expansion in your company, it could be for your own personal health and well-being. It could be for your own sanity. It could be for more time for your family. Whatever the lever is, that's up to you. I'm going to give you a tool that's going to help you evaluate for sure for your practice. What you might be or might need to be looking at a little more closely as the main thing or things that you need to lean on. So here we go. Here's some key basics. Normally I will get into the concept of time and defining it in more detail. I'm not going to do that for you guys, but because of the condensation here, but let me give you some key concepts. A lot of folks don't even know how many hours they have in a week. Every one of us on this call has 168 hours for, for your work time, for your sleep time, for your family time, for your fun time, to take care of your body, to feed your body, exercise your body, take care of your family, travel, all of those things. So that is a constant, but what you do with it is quite variable, because it's a little bit of an arbitrary, actually, and I'll show you why people get into trouble with this. But here's another one. You need to expand your thinking on this, okay? Particularly as an owner executive. So to put your owner executive hat on and take off the hat of Paul or Sherry or Nancy or Jerome or whoever, right? Because it is true that you have 168 every week. If you're just looking at this 1 week at a time. Nancy talked about the concept of a battle plan. I write a weekly plan too. And I have daily things that I map out that I do. But what I'm going to show you is what I go through every day, the drill in my head, which can be a pretty noisy, busy place sometimes. I want you to expand your thinking, because as an owner and executive, you actually have more time. So here's 2 datums for you. You spend about 75% of your life working, okay? And now I'm not just talking about in your business. There's work that you do at home. There's work you do with your family to take care of your house, all those things, your dwelling. So I'm not just talking about work, but by and large of your waking hours anyway, you're spending about 75% of it, or I'm sorry, 70% of it working. Now, for those of us that are familiar from a coding perspective with the rule of eights, the midpoint rule that Medicare uses is not what I'm talking about here. Here's a different rule of eights for you, okay? Here's the rule of eights for your business, not in reimbursement, not in coding for guys that use, CPT codes and HCFA or HCFA 1500s. You guys know what I'm talking about there. That's not what this is about. Check this out. Here's what I know. I know based upon the number of full-time equivalents that I have in my company, and if someone was, had a part-time job and was working 8 hours a day, at least a part-time compared to an owner executive, any one of my owners and executives don't work 8 hours. Could get to that point. I still don't. I love to work. I'm just doing a lot of different things, even though I'm not doing it all inside the 4 walls of my company right now. Well, let's just assume that based on the number of staff that you have, you're actually managing 8 times the number of your staff to maximize or leverage the time available. It'll make you look at your time a little differently, because you don't need to do it all. For me, check this out. I put the stuff that's my own facts or my own data. I'm putting it in orange here or red or whatever call this color. So I have about 40 full-time equivalents in Rebound. I have other activities that I run during the week too. I run a management group in Tennessee, and we have about 15 to 20 active members in that every week. And I have production to do there. I have volunteer time. I have family time. But when it comes to Rebound Physical Therapy, I manage 320 hours a day. So part of the problem is we're not thinking big enough. Okay, you have to know that you have more time available for you. If you're an owner executive, or if you're an executive in your company, you have responsibility for more than 168 hours in a week. Matter of fact, I have more than that every day. So I'm managing or creating results or effectiveness in 320 hours a day. So I think we need to think a little bit bigger is the point here. You need to change your thinking a little bit. I mean, it's a huge advantage for me when I started expanding my company and tucking people in underneath me. And I'll show you more later on how I approach that and what difference it made, at least more than conceptually, but certainly as far as leveraging time, because the family thing was really important. My wife left Topeka before I did, as far as a full-time basis. When my daughter started cranking out all these grandbabies, and she's an early childhood educator, the orders of importance has changed. She exited the practice. She turned over all of her hats in the company, all of her job responsibilities, wrote them up, turned them over to someone else and said, I'm gone. We're buying a place in Nashville. We've now built a home in Nashville. She homeschools our kids because she's an early childhood educator. So I had, you have to leverage the practice and your time towards those things that are important to you. So here's a Paul fact. What you spend most of your time on tells you what you consider most important in your life. And that was a hard fact for me. I had this conversation with Roxanne. It was really interesting. She's like, well, I know where you're spending most of your time, bro. So it's so funny because now I've got this home in Nashville and I spend, I work from an office in my house. And, it's an indicator of what, ended up being one of the most important factors in my life was not just being with her, but, creating, even though it was a greater distance and more space that I had to create within, I just had to take responsibility for where I spent most of my time. So where I used to spend most of my time here, now I spend most of my time there, but I'm still working from there. Okay. So that's just a Paul fact. Okay. It's sometimes a hard fact, but it helps you open the door to look at how to leverage not just what's most important, but what will move the dial. By the way, I think I mentioned this before, you're leveraging your time or your time creation against, it may be, hopefully there's some profitability and expansion component there to your business, but it can also be, your personal success and or happiness. It can be whatever it is that you want to leverage. Here's another one. Now, as an executive, this is important. What you get other people to spend their time on tells others what you think is important or most important and what you trust them with. And I've seen owners, I've seen owners that don't trust their staff. They won't turn things over to them because they think they're the best one at doing it. Well, that doesn't really work for me. I have to turn it over and make them better. My job is to help make my guys more successful. I'm here to service my executives, quite frankly, and to make sure that they become more able, more killer executives. But what I put their attention and time on tells them what's most important to the company and to our expansion and their profitability too. So it tells them, what I trust them with or for and what they should be putting their attention on. So what I do as an executive, for sure, put people's attention on the most important things. Because check this out. This is very true for me. You can look at it for yourself. Anybody that's run a company or run a group of employees will find that this is true. Don't take it because it's a Paul fact. Take it because you look at it for yourself. But man's worst difficulty is his inability to tell the important from the unimportant. Okay, and this happens in my company still, particularly when you bring new people on. So you have to align your staff with the most important things, for their job or their post in the company, or for sure align the job with what's going to help them thrive and survive better in life. Hopefully thrive and not just survive. I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive because you have to produce an awful lot to make it, especially now with all the inflationary facts. But I don't know if you guys have found this, and this is something you can definitely put in the chat if you found this to be true. I find that the decision-making ability of my executives and my staff is driven on the level of importances. And sometimes they're not always working on the most important thing or putting their attention on, they might put their attention on a particular task instead of the public that we service, for example. It'd be, my remote example would be if you've got a flat tire and you're changing your wiper blades, maybe you're not handling the most important thing to get the car moving down the road. And I think our staff does that sometimes too. But know that this is a fact because we have to do some priority management is what I'll get into, but priority management is often the key as opposed to just allocating time. So you need to pick the longest levers is the point here. What's most important? I know this is a biased communication here. I'm just giving you some examples. You can break this down for your company. I am obviously, primarily approaching this as a private practice owner, but I know you have a personal life and I know you have other things that you're trying to leverage towards. Nancy said, I'm phase 2, meaning I'm getting others to get the work done. No doubt I'm still working from Nashville and or here, but I'm only working with my executive team. I'm not working with every 40 members of our staff every week and trying to, get my arms around all that. So I have to pick what the longest levers are. Hey, what are the things? And gosh, Nancy, I just realized a major outpoint. I don't have it sitting here in front of me because I'm in Bert's office right now and I meant to grab this last night, but you'll find that these 3 points here align with Keys to Private Success book. So Nancy might be able to hold that up and show you guys.
I'm gonna go get that. I'll be right. I'm gonna be right back with that.
To tell you how important that book is to me, on the cover of the book, I like simplicities. I don't have to get into all the details of the book in this talk, but on the cover of that book are the 3 keys, and it has to deal with, promotion, cash flow and organization. For me, promotion, would deal with obviously driving in new patients to the business. So I'll isolate it here. But because I know that for me, if I'm focusing on, week over week, what we're doing to create new business, get new starts, evaluations in my company is super important. And whatever that's worth, I know right now for us, it's about $1,300 or $1,350 per episode of care or per evaluation. So I know that for every start that we generate in the week and those actions that I take to, through my team to create starts, that's a pretty long lever for us. I also know that finance or the revenue cycle management side of it, the cash flow side, I call it revenue cycle management because there's a lot of touch points in there, whether you're looking at that as visits per new patient, or handling the arrival rate, or your charge diversity, meaning how you cluster your codes to drive collection per visit, or collection per episode of care. I know a few years back, I pressed on that one. I knew that we could get a few more visits per episode of care out of it, and that was going to make the biggest dollar difference for our new patient volume. If I was going to get more out of every new patient, and we consciously went after a subset of patients that were going to require a little longer episode of care. For example, not pressing as hard on balance and vestibular, even though we were really good at that. We were getting, we will certainly accept those patients, but the length of time that they're in the practice and the amount of work that it took, it made more sense to us to get some chronic pain patients and people with multiple comorbidities, more complex, but we spend a little more time with them, and it doesn't take as many new patients because our episode of care went up. I'm just giving you a real example. So there's an analysis. The point in me mentioning these three points here is you really need to do an analysis, a critical analysis of your practice to figure out what is going to be the longest lever for your practice. I still go through multiple analyses. I hire outside groups. I've had Survival Strategies do many analysis of my company over the years. Matter of fact, I just had a conversation with Craig last week, and we're looking at a future custom. I do tailor-made programs. I look at the problems that are causing me the most points of pain, and that allow me to leverage the expansion, stability, or viability in my practice. And these are some of the main points that I've found historically. So, and then payer mix too. If I get a heavy mix, right now with the Medicare cuts, I got to pay attention to what my mix is, and that's driven by my marketing and the kind of patients that we go after. And then, of course, staffing, the organizational workflows and production management or income production. My financial planning is driven by income production planning. So it comes down to who we have here, how many people we have, what we have them doing, what we have them focusing on, what are their priorities, and the workflows. I know those are general statements. My goal here for sharing this slide isn't to share with you, how to dissect that right now. You can get help on that. I encourage, I don't care whether you've done a program with Survival Strategies or not. Even when I was a perpetual client of theirs, working on my executive administrative skill, we continually did reassessments of our practice. I know there's what do you call it? What's it called? A FAT?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have two things. If you are, well, they can all start with this. Some people just jump in, give me the practice analysis. The practice analysis is really what Paul's talking about. And that is a very in-depth look at your practice, and it's very, very objective. There's maybe 5% subjectivity to it. It's all based on empirical data that they collect from you. It's done by someone who's been doing this on and off for about 25 or 30 years. But it all starts with our lovely Carolyn McDermott here. Carolyn is the practice analysis registrar, and she can tell you all about it. She's waving at you. She's warm and fuzzy. And my joke is she's like me, and that we both hail from the South Bronx. And she has a little thicky New York accent like me. I like to think hers is heavier, but she probably thinks mine's heavier. So, but it gets heavier when we talk to each other. But anyway, we have something we've been running on the Pizza Palooza side that, of course, again, we want to do apples to apples and help you guys the same way. It's called the financial assessment tool. And it just gets you to start looking at your numbers from a very different perspective, a perspective that Paul is 100% Like he's completely indoctrinated into that. Like that's how he started. Like, Paul, how long ago did you do survival strategies? Like you're one of their oldest clients. Like how, 25 years ago? 20?
Yeah, 97, I think, is when I finished my first program.
Yeah, 97. And he just kept going. And we put together like custom programs. I mean, he'll be like, my staff needs a refresh on blah. And we put it together because I'm going to speak for Paul. This is a Nancy fact. And it's actually from my acting teacher in New York, like a bajillion years ago. And I said to her one day about my career, my career is stagnant. And she said, that's a lie. No such thing as stagnation. You're either decaying or you're growing. Zero stagnate. It might look like you're stagnating, but think about a pond that's stagnant. It's not really. It's got all kinds of creepy algae growing on it. Like it's not. There's no such thing as stagnation. So I adopted, that's a Nancy fact, via Susan Slavin's Actors and Singers Academy in Carnegie Hall. And I've lived my life with that, and Paul does too. And so he just kept going. And that's how he kept growing. And Paul hits highest evers like all the time. And he sends us our graphs. Like I just hit a new highest ever. And that's because he has his attention on that with numbers. So back to the fact. It's a financial assessment tool. It takes about 45 minutes. I don't know. Carolyn's warm and fuzzy like I am. So she's chatty and she'll get all involved in everything going on in your practice. And then if you're interested, that's free, totally free. If you're interested, you can move on and talk about the practice analysis, which is very inexpensive for what you get. It's really a loss leader or whatever they call it. Do it for 3 weeks. You get so much out of it. There's no way Survival's making any money on that, but we don't care. It's about help. So anyway, if you're interested, please, I'm going to put my phone number in the chat. Please reach out to me via text because you guys, I am so bad. My emails are a tsunami. So there we go. There you go. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks for the clarification, because you didn't have the financial thing when I was going through, but I've done many practice analyses as a new client, an active client, and I still am always looking at assessment tools for these things. Currently we're working on this revenue cycle management. We handled the visits per new, or the episode of care. Now we're working on the revenue per visit, because we'll do 50,000 visits this year, and it's kind of worth my time to look at trying to leverage that or scale that. It's while it's tough to look at all these things, trust me, while we measure all these things every week, I don't work on every one of these things every week. I have to have an assessment tool that's ongoing in my practice. I have evaluation tools that we've set up through our training with survival strategies, so that I can pick the thing I need to do that's going to, do the mostest for the leastest, if you will, or maximize leveraging my time and my executive's time. So I'm just giving you categorically the things. This is the simplicity at which I can look at it and go, okay, how are we doing on the new patient volume, and what are these new patients on average worth? What's the revenue cycle look like? What's the finance and the revenue cycle? And of course, the production. Where's our production at? And I may end up carving out this whole staffing thing. I know it's a big deal for everybody, finding both therapists and good folks administratively to help you with your practice. It's almost like its own little subset, but I won't break that out necessarily right now. Okay, let's see here. I'm frozen up. There we go. So here's additional key data and points of advice. While I think most of those things I showed you before, for me, are very factual. I found them to be, from a scientific standpoint, very, very true. What I said about man's worst difficulty is his inability to tell the important from the unimportant. I find that, I've done research on that. I didn't just read that datum and go, oh yeah, this seems like it might be right. No, it works. You have to go look at it for yourself, but you can measure all those things I just put up there. Here's some additional points for you. This is a time-saving tool for you. This is one of these sub-product tools. This datum, along with the priority management concept that I'm going to go over at the end, are really big keys. Decision and time. You want more time? Make more decisions, or make it easier for others in your organization to make decisions. So in order to do that, you need to write good policy and write up, good procedures or hats for your company. A hat is, let me give you an example. while the front desk is a location in your company, not necessarily a division in my mind of your company. Some people label it that way. I don't, but there's many functions under the front, the front desk of a practice, right? You have the reception functions, receiving public, receiving phone calls. There's a way to do that. There is, new patient scheduling, established patient scheduling. There is how to collect on the patient's financial responsibilities. Those are just a few of the hats, and there's going to be others for that position in the company. But there's multiple procedures or hats that this person has to be able to wear. Each one of those is different. You have an owner hat. Maybe you have a practitioner hat, a therapist hat. Maybe you have a clinic director hat. You're wearing all those. Maybe you're doing some PR and marketing. Those are all different hats. When it comes to segmenting your company, certainly you want to make it easy for your staff by writing good policy and good procedures. But to roll this back to just the first part of this statement, make more decisions. The more decisions I make and the rapidity with which I can make those decisions, I buy myself time. Let me make it to take it down into something really simple, like with a patient. Okay, when I was in patient care and I could rip through an evaluation if I had good data. If you've got good, objective history, you take a good subjective history by asking questions. If I know how to do a solid evaluation, I'm doing all of that observation of a patient with one thing in mind: how rapidly can I make decisions? When I can get to a decision, I go right into action and it's done. The more time I get stuck in maybes and should I or shouldn't I or I don't know, and that just makes me psychotic. It hangs me up. It puts too many things in my mind that are not decided upon. So if I want more time, I make decisions. I like to make decisions fast, and I like to make a lot of them. And I like to get my executives and my staff's ability to do that. That sometimes takes writing up the pathways of your company. If it's all in your head, it's all going to come to you. You're going to get overwhelmed with other people asking you to make decisions. So I spend more of my time in Nashville writing policy. If something hits my plate that isn't already written up, that demands a decision, I write it up. I ask myself, is it written up? If it is, I just issue the policy or get the person to handle it that's supposed to be handled. It doesn't hit my plate anymore. People don't call me with their problems because it's written up, or the task is given to the person that's supposed to be handling it, not just the person that they feel most comfortable going to. So I'm not going to go any more on that, because the most important thing is, if you want more time, make more decisions, or make it easier for others to make decisions underneath you. There's a bigger responsibility when you move up the food chain, if you will. Here's another point or datum for you. You want to triple your efficiency. Okay, check this out. Do what you want to be doing, or get going, or going in the direction that you want to go. What ends up happening is we start a task and then we get these interruptions. We get people bringing stuff to us that either they don't know how to solve or that isn't ours or whatever. If you can train yourself to do this is an incredible skill, by the way, and I'm pretty good at it. You do what you're doing while you're doing it and get it done. But more importantly, are you doing the things you want to be doing, or you should be doing, and are you going the direction you want to go? I go to great efforts to make sure, not necessarily physical efforts, it's kind of more of a mental effort thing, to push things in the direction that I know they need to go, and not ever let anybody get me off that path, and stay on that thing. And it's not a selfish thing. When it comes to the company, it's the thing that's the greatest good for the company and for the group. It's company first. For me, it's the company and the ownership, and then on down the line, and those are the decisions you have to make every day. So if you want to triple your efficiency, make sure you're going the direction that you want to be going, or doing the things you want to be doing and going the direction you want to go. And if you don't want to do it, then you better write it up. You better turn it over to somebody. That's how I expand. I create positions for people. I create great people underneath me. And not in a literal sense because they function on their own, because it's written up and handed over. There's a skill to that. So first you need to decide what that is. What direction you want to be going, and what do you want to be doing? Okay, here's the one of the major key datums. This is the genesis of this talk comes from this. Time management is not really your problem or the problem. It isn't a problem with time. It's like I told you before, we all got 168. If you're an owner executive, you have more than that. You have so many resources available to you that you may or may not be tapping into and aligning towards priority management, because priority management is the problem. Because if man's difficulty is the inability to tell the important from the unimportant, then priority management is really the problem. It is not time. Okay. So that to you again, it is priority management. This is what I found. I found people changing their windshield wipers when they should be changing the tire in your company. As a, I'm not going to nitpick on any one thing here, but so here's a priority management example for you. I'm going to actually show you a drill I did with an owner within the last week. Okay. And I've done this with many people before. So I'm going to show you a segmentation of time and evaluation. This is not the kind of analysis that you do with survival strategies, but this is it aligns with some of the things that you'll look at in your company for sure. But I'm going to have, this is what I had someone do to look at their life to do what I'll call a priority management drill. So there's only 4 columns to this next slide I'm going to show you. So it's going to show what do you spend your time on, the majority of your time on in a given week. And then of those, let's say I'm going to say the top 10 here. I'm going to list 10 things that I had this person do 11, but I distilled this down to 10 for this example, but I took the majority of an actual example that I'm going to show you. So 4 columns. What are the top 10 things you spend most of your time on? And then what actions of those things, how would you rank those 10 things as far as their ability for you to leverage your profitability, expansion, success, happiness, whatever it is, whatever's most important for you. Okay. So these 10 things had things like, time with the family or time to work out, or, if you wanted to put recreation on there or travel, you could put that on there, but you're probably not going to do that every week. So I'm looking at things you do every week. We look at the things you do if you're treating patients or in management, in marketing, in hiring, all those things that occur, right? So you rank those 1 to 10. And then you write what you're really doing most of the time, priority wise. In other words, the hours that you actually are spending. And because like I said before, what you think is most important is what you're spending the most time on. And it's a real indicator to you. If you aren't spending time with your family, you're just basically saying it's not important, or you're not creating that, certainly. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying that's what you're spending most of your time on. Okay. And, sometimes it may be hard hitting for some folks, but it's like, well, gosh, why would I hire more people so I can go do that? Right. And why would I train them up? And why would I invest in that? Because it's freaking important. That's why, because it's a thing that's going to create success and happiness for me in my life and the people around me. Plus, it's a good example of my guys to, now I'm forming a management company to pull more, 4 more guys up the chain, and we'll manage, a bigger enterprise, maybe clinics there or anywhere within the US. So the last thing is then how would you restructure those times to maximally leverage your time? So let me just show you, this is probably simpler than the last slide I just showed you. So check this out. This was an owner clinic director. This is someone that is an owner, but was primarily functioned as a clinic director. So I said, okay, let's list, I had him do 11. I could be able to distill it down to 10. What are you spending your time on? So check this out. So management meetings, PR and marketing functions, time with the family. They needed to do some study or personal enhancement, meaning, do some training, take some courses, read books, learn how to do things better, whatever that is for you. They were doing admin and documentation time. They were doing a little bit of time on statistical analysis and planning in their business. They working out to them was important, physical activity. They were treating patients. They were volunteering outside, and they were doing some HR and hiring. These were all functions they were involved in as an owner, executive, director. So then I had them rank them 1 to 10. What's the thing that would leverage your prosperity or profitability? Check this out. So PR and marketing actions was number 1, hiring was number 2. She ranked these on importance, leveraging from her viewpoint without any kind of a data analysis from me, financially or anything like that. This was her ranking. Then I had her write, okay, how many hours you spend in meetings? 15 hours a week in meetings. I'm like, holy Jesus. Oh, okay, so that would be a lot. So, and then PR and marketing actions, 4. So you see how she just laid out the number of hours. So, and it's not unrealistic here. I'm going to move this thing at the bottom of my screen so I can see the bottom. It's not unusual here. So 87 hours a week. Okay, so you got 168. So okay, that's half of it. That's half the time. If she was sleeping 50 hours, let's say 7 hours a day, 50 hours a week, that's still 137. You still got 31 hours to do whatever. Obviously I don't have on here, feeding your family or meals and travel and personal hygiene. And I don't have all that stuff on there. So you've got 30 hours to handle all that. But you can see that there's a hierarchy of hours here. And then there's this re-ranking here of, again, what are you spending most of your time on? That's most important. She was spending 30 hours in the clinic treating patients and 4 hours a week on PR and marketing. Well, and there was nobody assigned in the company to do that. And if that was the biggest thing in the company, that's where the practice analysis comes in. It's like, well, they'll tell you, where you should be spending most of your time. I'm not doing that for you guys here today. And in her case, it wasn't actually this, it was actually hiring, which was number 2, but she was spending 3 or 4 hours, which was the 6th ranked thing. So let me just show you the analysis just to make this a little easier. So I marked it up with some yellow highlighted areas. What I did is I just compared, okay, here's the 8th, here's the 8th ranked time thing, 8th ranked priority, but it was number 2 in time. So there's a pretty big disparity there. So I put that in yellow. PR and marketing, right? It was the number 1 priority, but number 6 in how much time that she was spending on the activity. Okay, so there you go. There's a big disparity from 6 to 1. This is like what I'll call a data analysis or a situation analysis, right? Like this is a situation here, because this is thing that's going to this is what's going to make this person's company more profitable, along with hiring more staff. Guess what she should hire? Maybe she should hire someone to treat some patients. Maybe it'd be worth it if she drove more business in sequence and learned how to do that better, and turned over this patient care hat. It would buy, look how much time that would buy her, because the number 1 thing was this, but it was number 4 priority wise. So it actually gives a pathway here for decision making. Hopefully you guys can see this. She was this person was spending the number 3 priority time. Was documentation time or admin. Filling out paperwork, not just patient care stuff, but reports and whatnot. She could definitely leverage some time here because it was the 10th on importance, but it was number 3 domination of the time. So while I don't want to sit here and dissect this individual, this looked like me, by the way, in the beginning. And it's really interesting because now with knowing these priorities, because there's plenty of time, there's 87 hours she's got, that's only half of her week. Even to throw the 50 hours in there to sleep, there's still 30 on top of that. It's really just priority management. It is not a time management program. And this is just her time. And then in my case, I've got 40 staff. I have 320 hours that I can leverage some of these things against, find the best people and give them just one little piece of it, right? So while this isn't intended to get you guys to do this drill for yourself right now, it's really just to awaken you to the opportunity in front of you and change the thinking. This is what I was telling Nancy. It's a little bit mind bending to go, oh my gosh, it's kind of an exposure drill. It kind of exposes the importances in what you're actually spending the time on. And it kind of takes the talking about it out of it and go, well, wait a minute. I say this is important, but this is what I'm really doing. And that's why I say it's a priority management problem. So check this out. These are real examples, just to give you reality, because that becomes subjective. What I just showed you is I'm comparing one person's life to what yours might be, but I'm going to give you real things from my own life. Because I mentioned new business as part of one of the 3 keys to private practice success, or promotion and marketing to drive in new business. Here's what I had to figure out. This is a hard truth for me. When I was a baby executive and owner coming up the line, when I was treating patients just like this one, when I was being the clinic director, when I was the owner, and when I was doing PR and marketing, okay, I was doing all those things. When I realized the value of a start, which right now it's $1,300 or $1,350, it was less than that back in the day. More importantly for me, I was pretty good at going out and building relationships out in the community. I got trained in it by Survival Strategies, but I liked doing it. I was doing something that I liked to do and I knew I was good at. And when I had to face the stark reality of the number of starts that created for our company and the expansion of our group, and I really committed the time to that, and it was really only about, going from a couple hours a week to, maybe 5 to 8 hours a week. It was, it was 2 to 3 times what I was doing, probably 10 some weeks. When I realized, when I did a critical data analysis and I found out that, look, when I went and did one of those visits and created relationships, and this was a long-term statistical analysis, because I looked at the times that I did it and I didn't do it. And here's what I found. One visit from Paul Silovsky in the day. I don't do those visits anymore, except for, key people that I meet with when I come into town and just keep a relationship with, because I've built a team that does that. When I found out that one visit, and I did 2 different evaluations with survival strategies, by the way, with someone helping me with the data the first time. After that, I just did it myself. One visit was worth $3 to $5 grand for that hour of work. So when I did a certain number of, touches with people in the community, my time with a potential referral source or a current referral source or a past referral source that fell off the rails was worth $3 to $5 grand for every hour that I spent. Pretty amazing, right? And then it resulted in more new patients, along with what we do in marketing too. Revenue cycle management. I already gave that example here, but I'm going to give you a real example. Okay, you can handle revenue per visit or episode of care, like I said before. I found that the revenue per visit or episode of care through analysis was more important or more valuable to me than handling the arrival rate. While the arrival rate is can be a big deal, at least for us, 3 to 4% of our visits was less in dollar value than taking last year it was 45,000 visits, but this year will be 50,000. So that was 45,000 times 5. You do the math. Okay, if I can move the dial on $5 per visit or more completed plans of care, more visits per episode of care, that made a bigger difference. It was leveraging, it was priority management. I'm not saying I don't work on arrival rate, because we haven't done as well lately during when Omicron hit and all that. So we're doing a staff training program on handling the arrival rate better. But the priority is, over time, particularly with what's happened in the reimbursement world, running up the pole or running up the effectiveness on our revenue per visit. But here's what happened in the past. I had to confront the stark reality that I had to replace myself over time. First with a clinician, which that person I did the evaluation with recently was a real deal, 30 hours a week. Then as a clinic director, because I was being the clinic director, owner, and a physical therapist, plus I was doing PR and marketing stuff. So when I hired a clinician, a clinic director, and a PR and marketing director, it took 3 people to replace everything that I was doing. I just bought myself a lot of time towards prosperity, expansion, happiness, and success in life. And it was all because I know that those things were priorities. And I just took the time to train someone else to do it. Obviously got survival strategies helping to learn how to become an executive, because I sucked as an executive in the beginning. It was the thing that I was better as a PR and marketing person by far, still am. And I'm still, developing myself as an executive, but I'm getting better and better at the priority management. So it took 3 people to replace everything I was doing so I could make sure we were expanding. So you need to think with and create, bigger problems, and you'll spend less time on smaller problems and actually make more money. I guess I didn't complete that. It must have went off the slide there. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do here, because I'm running out of time here. Is I'm going to stop the share, open the screen back up. Nancy, do we have any questions first of all? Oh, you're muted, dear. Yep, you're still muted. I can't imagine Nancy being muted. It's just like so.
The fiance wishes I had a mute button. He's like, can I get the new model with the mute button, please? Sorry about that. And then I lost my screen. We do not have any questions at the time, but if anybody has any questions, we'd love to field them and answer them, because Paul is, he's really good at this. So, I mean, that whole thing about where I really spend my time.
It's a hard reality.
It's a hard reality. And I see where there's tasks that I just swear I cannot turn over. Like, I'm very competent. Some of them are on here, very competent people. And yet I'm like, oh no, I have to do that. I have to do that. It's so weird. Oh, how we get clingy about certain things. But then you're in the pattern that you're in. So,
I have a question.
go ahead, Jerome.
So, hi everybody. Good to see you guys again. You know, I'm 10 years into my practice. And the last 5 years I've experienced some very substantial growth. But I'm at a point now where I'm kind of hitting the wall because I have a lot of business coming in. And so I've seen the transition or the struggle of trying to kind of get to the next place. And so I guess my question would be, at what point, Paul, did you really have the realization of I need to start pulling myself away and really putting these key people into place, because like I had a couple weeks where I had 40, 50 referrals, and I'm a PT with no other PT help. And so you know how challenging that can be because I'm doing a lion's share of evals all day. And, and I'm currently, I can range anywhere from 12 to 22 evals in a week.
I know what Paul's going to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, here's, and I'll not necessarily use your example, Jerome, but I'll use the one that hit me the hardest because I gave that example on new patient volume. When I confronted the responsibility that, and this is the key point, when I confronted the responsibility that, wow, when I'm not doing that, the company doesn't expand or do as well. So I leaned into that, and it was easier for me. It was easier for me to replace myself as a clinician. While I was a good clinician, I was better at PR and marketing. And I didn't have anybody immediately to handle that anyway. And it was easier for me to get a therapist than trust someone, because I put that trust factor in that one slide, than trust someone with the face of my business and PR and marketing. And, then we got Wendy in here, and that changed the landscape a little bit. I found someone that I knew could do it, but so there's that. But on the clinic,
let's sidebar on Wendy. Wendy has been with Paul for 15 years. Paul's done a lot of training on staff retention, and boy, I'll tell you that Wendy, we love her. She's been on several. She helps out a lot from her post as bringing in. She's the gal that now brings in all the referrals. Anyway, just had to plug Miss Wendy.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, 100%. And the same is true of all my guys. I mean, Wendy's actually the least tenured of all of my senior executives. Bert has been here 17. Janet's 16, and Janet 17 or 18. No, actually Janet's pressing in on 20, and she's our VP of admin, and she was also a clinician. But to Jerome's point on the clinical realm, while that was easiest for me, it may not be easy for Jerome. It may be harder to confront for other individuals. But what I had, like Bert has to do this now, for example. We just had the conversation. We're having the conversation now. Bert and Jerome, Bert, who he is, right? Great clinician. And he's got to work his way out, more into spending more and more time in this VP of operations role, because we have the two clinics, and he has a clinic director here at the main clinic who's doing 700 plus visits a week, 750 a week, just in the one visit. So he's got a director and with sub managers underneath him there. And, Bert he's still treating patients because he loves to do it. And it's a little bit of a liability to the group, quite frankly. And he knows that liability from the standpoint that, okay, dude, we're recruiting, but you're going to recruit for your replacement. In other words, we're going to find the person to replace you, because guess what? Bert was the guy that came in 17 years ago to replace my visits, because he has the heart. He has the heart of Jerome or Paul, and he has the technical skill. And he came in and did the work, and now all of a sudden he's running. It's not a big surprise. So it's finding the guy that's going to replace you in the clinic, not just a therapist, right? But someone who's going to carry on the legacy of how you treat people, not necessarily all your technical skill, but how you handle people. That's a bigger responsibility, because that person is going to care for the group. And when you communicate that in your hiring, when you say, this is what I'm looking for, you're not just looking for a therapist, you're looking for an A player that's freaking awesome. And someone that you're gonna give the responsibility of the group to, and reward them for it. Because Bert is a really well-paid physical therapist, because he's caring for, 950 visits a week, and then a couple hundred more wellness visits or whatever. But it's really just deciding, that is the decision, by the way. And it's a hard one to make that, or you go the other direction and say, I'm going to hire someone to be the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I tried that one. I'm better as a part-time CEO.
Right.
I still love it. I mean, I'm still into it. I don't want to give, I'm not willing to give it up. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if that answers.
How are you going to give your vision over to somebody else? You know what I mean? It's your vision. If you're still in that game in a big way. So Jerome, I hope that answered your question. And I'll tell you this, guys, we're almost getting to the end. So my favorite thing to do, of course, is to thank you guys for your time, because we know how hard, we know most of you are treating. We'd like to see you, as I call it, treat less, CEO more, hashtag. If you want to know how to do that or follow in the footsteps of Paul and what's probably going to be Jerome's next step. Jerome's been with Survival Strategies for a long time. If you don't know, Survival Strategies is a training and consulting firm that's been training and consulting only private practice for 34 years. These aren't like two guys with an MBA that are like, hey, little lady and gentlemen, you know what you need. And it's all subjective. It's very objective. And they've been doing this for a long time. And Jerome's been with us for a very long time. With that said, guys, I want to tell you, if you are a PT private practice owner, I want to make something also available to you. And it might sound really weird, but this Palooza event, we do about 3 live events a year. So we have one in the spring, and it is called Resilience 2022, because we feel like you guys really exerted and pushed forth with some resilience over the last 2 years, but we want to give you even more. And the agenda is jam-packed. Now, is it pediatric? Yes, it's pediatric, and that a lot of peds will be there. Peds owners will be there. I want to let you know, though, that back in the day, for the first 29 years, Survival was strictly handling adult private practice PT owners that specialized in adult and geriatric patients. And we had a couple of peds people that came along, and they had to, take the best and leave the rest. And they had to go, well, wow, our business paradigm's a little different. Well, one of them grew to 3,000 visits a week, just listening and doing, and then getting the tailor-made part. But the conferences and the conventions, Paul, you can speak to that. They were all for your group. They were not pediatric based at all. And the other one is Mary Hydorn, who has 4 locations and probably does well over 2,000 visits a week and has a boatload of school contracts. So if you're like, oh my gosh, how can I get an effective but inexpensive experience of getting these conferences? And then you can have all the input in the world you want about how you'd like the adult ones to go, because I will be creating conferences based on your participation. I put this there for the pediatric guys because they had nothing. Everybody treated them like they were all the same group. There's a lot of stuff out there. I almost feel badly for you guys because you're marketed to so heavily that it's like leprechauns trying to see which bling is next. You're like, we got that bling and we got direct access and we don't want to visit doctors, and Survival says you got to visit doctors, and what's true. And there's so much out there, but I got to tell you, they were kind of first. We call it the firstest with the mostest. And they've been doing this for 34 years. They helped Paul grow. You guys go to school to learn to be the most amazing clinicians, hands down. I think I've met 0.001 crappy, pardon my New York French, crappy clinicians that should just not be in that game. But you don't go to school to learn how to CEO. And I say that Survival Strategies and the conferences are like CEO school. So it depends if you want one-on-one learning, that's Survival Strategies, and you want it tailor-made. If you want a group setting, those are the conferences. They're not tailor-made, but boy, these people grow the heck out of their practices with the combination of the two. It's like the conference is the snack that you need at 4 o'clock. Like you need that cake pop and a latte, but you can't sustain yourself on that very long. And then survival strategies is like the pasture raised chicken, the organic broccoli, the steamed brown rice. You need the dense nutrition. And that's all I want to say about that. If anything we said piqued your interest, if you want to chat with Paul, Paul will make himself available with all of those hours he's got figured out, right, Paul? And Paul came to our last PEDS event. It was amazing. And so don't think that it's not for you just because you're going to hear the word like pediatric a lot and it might be branded that way. I want to hear your input and then bring that to you guys in an adult branded fashion. So that's our time. I want to thank Paul. He always comes to the table. I'd love to see that 90-minute presentation. So my fingers are crossed that we will have an event by the end of 2022. But you guys got to participate. You got to jump on that private practice network. If you're not in there, request to join, answer the questions, or we don't let you in because we are like that. We vet all of our people because we had a bunch of independent contractors that are not private practice owners, and it was starting to change the conversation. So we really vet our people very, very strongly. So please fill out the questions. Private Practice Network is the Facebook group. Get on there, please. If you're on here now, help answer questions, pose questions. And that's pretty much all of our time. Oh, this is the book, you guys. The Keys to Private Practice Success. Merritt Randall here, the fantastic Merritt Randall is actually redoing the entire book. The data is amazing. And it's a lot of what Paul said is from datums, key datums in here. But Merritt is redoing it. We're going to have a version for adult PT practice owners, and we're going to have a pediatric version. That's going to look for that. So it's a little dated, but the data inside is timeless. It's the best $29.95 you're ever going to spend. So go to survivalstrategies/shop. I get a nickel for saying that without a mess up. And you guys must think I'm seriously crazy. I had my juice while my fiance juices this nasty green juice every day, but it's good for you. So anyway, that's all I want to tell you guys. If you need me, I'm going to put my number out. Paul, let me get your, you want people to email you or what? What's better for you?
Yeah, actually email is probably the best for me. Paul at reboundphysicaltherapy.com.
Okay, Jerome, we love you. See you. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Thanks. We love having you. Paul, what is it?
Paul at reboundphysicaltherapy.com.
Paul at reboundphysicaltherapy.com. Reach out. We'll get you some help. Let me know if you're interested in attending that conference, and go do what you guys do best.
Hey, when is that one? When you're talking
Oh
about?
my gosh, it's in Hotlanta, and it is April 30th, May 1st. It's a 2-dayer, and it's at a fabulous hotel. It's at the Omni Hotel. Rooms are very limited. I mean limited, and we usually sell out. But I'd love to get a little group of private practice, PT private practice owners. Maybe Paul will come out and maybe you guys can network, schmetwork. And
Yeah, we can do a round table for the adults. We can adult up.
Wouldn't that be nice if we adult up? And
Yeah.
I would love to see that happen. And it's just tons, guys, it's resources like you can't imagine. So there's a couple of PEDS people on here now, like Cassie Woods. She can speak to, it's been pretty amazing. Cassie's one of our original Paloozies, as I call them. She came to the first event also with survival strategies, and she's gonna wave and say that it's I know what she's gonna say from space, that it's fantastic, because it is. It's not because of me, it's because the group is amazing, right, Cass? I know you guys gotta.
I'm gonna say it's out of this world.
Oh, no pun intended, but pun intended. Always keep on Cassie to make us laugh. All right, guys, we're going to sign off, but it is pretty flawless. Let me know if you're interested. April 30th, May 1st, Hotlanta, Georgia. And we'd love to see you there. And we'll get a little adult, or maybe not so little, adult roundtable going. And, get your problems out there and your challenges, and we overcome them. Boy, I'll tell you, the people in the PEDS group are booming. I'm not exaggerating. I know I'm like very New Yorky and I can sound a little, like exaggeratory. I swear they are booming, booming. That's all I have to say. So if you want to boom, you got to get in the room if you want to boom. Okay. I'm going to leave you on that note, guys. I love you all, and reach out to me if you need anything. Reach out to Paul. Okay. Ciao.